Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Masterson with the Reynolds Company. I'm one of the automation specialists out of the Houston office, and I would like to thank you for attending our users group this morning. And today's topic is Introduction to Innovation Suite, where we're going to break down the different software products that make up the Innovation Suite software. All right. I would like to cover some of the upcoming events we have coming up. We have Tech Talks coming up where one of our Encompass partners next week, Spectrum Controls, will be going over some of their products. This includes their Universal Gateway and some of their IO products for both 1769 and Micro 800. Then on September 15th, our Tech Talk will be configuring drives using Connected Components Workbench. And on September 29th, we'll be doing our Tech Talk on Control Flash Plus. It's a tool a lot of people aren't utilizing right now that will make your lives easier. And also for next month, our users group we're going to be taking a look at augmented maintenance and safety for MCCs using some of the augmented reality products we have at our disposal. Next slide. I do want to make an announcement. We have talked about this for a while, but Automation Fair will be live here in Houston. Dates November 10th and 11th. It's going to be kind of a combo virtual live hands-on show. We don't have a lot of information on it right now, but please keep coming back to us on our website and we'll post information as we have it. Registration has not opened. Just want to make you aware of it. There is information, and Rockwell does have information concerning Automation Fair posted to their website too, but we'll make you aware of any changes or updates as they come along. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to Brianne Murray. Oh, go ahead, Bree, and there you go. You didn't know I gave you a fancy intro.
Thanks, Mike.
You are very welcome.
Appreciate it.
Well, you can tell I'm a really great PowerPoint person because I figured out how to make your intro swirl in. But Brianne will be taking a look at the software products and breaking down what makes up Innovation Suite. She's a solutions consultant for information and analytics. She's based mainly out of Dallas, but she also works out of Houston also. And with that, Bree, I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for the intro. Glad to be here today. And like Mike said, I am an information and analytics solution consultant. I am based out of Dallas, but I spend a lot of time in Houston. But what that information and analytics title really means is that I cover our entire software portfolio. So everything from the HMI visualization level and up, I talk about Historian Asset Center and the analytics and IoT platforms that fit within the Innovation Suite topic that I'm going to go over today. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to mention, right, is FactoryTalk is Rockwell's name and title for our entire software portfolio. And there's a lot of different technologies that fit under that umbrella. There's also a few different suites that we call them that fit under that umbrella as well. The stuff that we've been known for a while now, right? In addition to our hardware, our controllers, and some of our power stuff, we've got our FactoryTalk Historian, we've got FactoryTalk View, ME, and SE on the HMI side of things. And what we really want to focus on today, right, is we've been putting a lot of growth and emphasis on some of those more advanced software technologies that are going to help spur what we call that digital transformation and evolution that a lot of folks in the manufacturing industry are focused on. And that's what you see here in this red and orange box. It's broken down into a couple of different sections, and I'll go into that in more detail in the next couple of slides. But really, as a whole, when we're talking about Innovation Suite, we're talking about those information software style technologies, and that's things like analytics or connectivity platforms like the Industrial Internet of Things or IIoT. Manufacturing execution systems also fits under that bucket. But there's a lot of different types of things that fit in here today. And my goal is to help kind of demystify that a bit and give you guys a good perspective on what fits there and what are the use cases that those different technologies have and how they can best apply to you and your organization today. So I'm going to start with my go-to way of really explaining this. And with most things in the manufacturing industry, I like to explain it based on where it sits at an organization, right? Our controllers, our hardware, our devices, and our machines, they're sitting at this lowest level here on the machine or on the plant floor. We've then got what we call the edge, which is as we move up beyond that plant floor, we're going into a site or SCADA system level, and then beyond there, an enterprise level, whether that's on-prem, in a cloud, or beyond. This is typically the breakdown that I like to look at from really an architectural understanding. But Innovation Suite itself is focused on information and data. And that's kind of the trend that I want you guys to hang on to today, especially in this slide where I kind of explain there's really 4 main functionalities and uses and interactions with information and data that make up the Innovation Suite. And the first piece is connectivity, right? Step 1 with anything, when we're trying to better optimize and understand what's going on around us, the first thing we have to do is connect to that data. The second piece, it sits a little bit higher on the site and enterprise level, is, hey, now that we've got connections to that data, what are we doing with it? How do we access it? Where do we see it? And how can we act on the information in front of us? The third thing, it's going to span from the plant floor to the edge at the site and enterprise levels as well. But it's focused not on accessing that information or connecting to it anymore, but how can we really optimize what's in front of us? How can we start applying models? How can we start reducing maintenance costs and improving performance across the board? And then the last bucket, it's actually focused a little bit less on where it sits on a site or plant floor level, but it's focused on the human side of things, as in how can you really enable your workforce to simplify and share information and data that you have as a part of your organization. Give me 1 sec, guys. All right, sorry about that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hop into the different pieces that really fit within these 4 key functionalities here. So the first thing, connecting to data, this is where we focus on edge connectivity. The product that I'm mainly going to talk about today is FactoryTalk Edge Gateway, and I'll go into that in a bit. But there are a few other connectivity and driver softwares available via us at Rockwell and via our partners that really can make up this bucket of, hey, how do we get information from a device into the system we want to interact with it on? Now the second piece, right, accessing and visualizing that information and acting on it, that's going to be made up of 3 things for the sake of our conversation today. The first, IIoT, or Industrial Internet of Things. That's going to be our ThingWorx platform from our partner PTC. It's really robust, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail. The second is our manufacturing execution system options, those that sit between the plant floor and like an ERP system. And then the third, I'd also like to talk about our computerized maintenance management system, or CMMS as well, fix. So again, I'll hop into these. Remember, this is our connectivity piece. This is, hey, where are we collecting this information, viewing it, accessing it, and interacting with it? Now, the third one, again, optimizing data. This is going to be our scalable analytics platform. How can we apply visualization and mathematical models to really optimize what we see in front of us? And I'll go into that suite as well. And then the last one, that human-centric option, where we're simplifying and sharing information to enable that workforce, that's actually going to be our augmented reality suite, Euphoria. And I think there's a lot of good stuff to talk about in there as well. But anyways, these are the 4 groups that I'm going to hop into today. I'm going to briefly go over the different technologies that make up each of these buckets here. I guess I want to pause first quickly. If you guys have questions right now or along the way, Mike, hopefully you can either answer them in the chat, or feel free to interrupt me and I can talk about them live as well.
Sure.
But yeah, make sure you guys are asking questions, because I guess I want to preface this by saying there's a lot of information here already. On slide 3, I've listed 6 or 7 different technologies, and my goal isn't to confuse y'all, but I want you to understand there's a lot of different functionalities and capabilities within what we call the FactoryTalk Innovation Suite.
And Bree, we do have a full team behind you, so any questions get asked, we'll get them answered right away. So
perfect. Yeah, sounds great. Sounds great. All right, I will go ahead and hop right into it then. And I'm going to go ahead and start with this bottom section here. How do we connect to data via FactoryTalk Edge Gateway? So FactoryTalk Edge Gateway, a fairly new product, but it has really been kind of the talk of the town within Rockwell lately, because it's got a lot of functionality and really robust capability built into it. On what it does, there's really 3 main steps that you see in these orange circles up here. And the first is pretty obvious. We're talking about connectivity. So step 1 is connecting to data. It's got a lot of different capabilities and connectors available to talk to a lot of different devices and objects, whether that's via Ethernet, via our FactoryTalk Live Data internal system, or via OpenC or a kept server system as well. It can talk to just about anything, and that's obviously important when we're trying to have one unified system that can pull your information, bring it up, and then send it to wherever you're trying to access it later. But where I think the biggest value with FactoryTalk Edge Gateway lies is in this middle step that you see here called contextualize. So what FactoryTalk Edge Gateway does is, instead of just collecting and sending data along, it actually applies an information model to the OT data that you're trying to pull up into those higher level IT, ERP, MES, or other systems, so that instead of having missing data pieces or siloed information that doesn't have all the context it needs that it might at the OT level, we can make sure that that's transferred along with the actual data point itself, so that we've got one single source of truth, making sure that everything is collected at once, and there are no concerns with, hey, we're missing information. What kind of work does that require on the human side of things to go in and reconfigure, cleanse it, reorganize it, or whatever else might be required. And then step 3, also pretty obvious, is mapping that data to wherever it needs to go. On the far right here, we've got a few of the options listed, whether it be SQL, Azure IoT Hub, our own IoT platform, ThingWorx, or others. It's a really flexible system, and it's a really powerful one when it comes to connectivity. All right. So that's the main point I wanted to talk about today with connectivity. I do think it's important to mention, while that's our most robust and capable system, it's not our only gateway, as well as there are other partner hardware gateways that exist. And even our partnership with PTC and ThingWorx, they've got Kepler drivers, which are also important. But the really important thing to mention here, remember, is first step with anything you want to do with information solutions and information software is get that data where it needs to be. And where it needs to be, that opens up an entire new point of conversation, right? Whether it's an IIoT system, an MES system, or a CMS. I'll go into those 3 today. There's probably even more options as well. But I want to talk about these because I think they can be the most powerful solutions whenever they're deployed. And the first, again, IIoT, or Industrial Internet of Things platform, is what we call ThingWorx. This comes from our partnership with PTC that started in 2018. And this, honestly, in my day-to-day conversations, is probably the most robust system that we can offer to really give someone or an organization access to all of their information in one unified interface. And that's really the main functionality and main value of it, right? Is instead of having to go over here to log into a CMMS system and then go over here to sign into an ERP system and then email somebody that has to manage purchasing or other information, all of those different siloed software systems or different siloed data sources, databases, or devices can be connected in one unified interface via an Internet of Things platform like ThingWorx. And the power of that, right, is that instead of having to figure out the logistics and the manual efforts that have to be created and configured between those systems, we can do all of that within this software platform. And in addition to that, we can also create visualization and dashboards that's going to make it even easier and even more intuitive for different users in your organization to access that information or those other software systems down the line. It's a bit complex to talk about because there's so much capability within it. There's a lot of different options and what you can actually do with it. But the biggest thing here to remember is connectivity. It's one unified interface that can look at all of them, and it has a very powerful visualization platform overlaid on top of it to make sure that whoever's looking into this information has an easy way to dig into it. In addition to that, it also has capabilities to perform business logic, to apply analytic models, and to do some computation on data and information within the system itself as well. All right, so that's my quick 2-minute spiel on ThingWorx. The next one I'd like to hop into is manufacturing execution systems. And Rockwell really has 3 flavors of these. But as a whole, a manufacturing execution system is designed to sit between the plant floor and a higher level business system like an enterprise resource planner or a product lifecycle management tool, and do all of the connections and talking between the two so that you've got one system that is able to handle it all. Now, our 3 flavors of this, the most common is what we call production center. And this is our full-fledged MES solution that's going to have all of the capabilities you need to perform it and have one on an end user site. However, there are 2 other flavors that I think are important to mention because oftentimes, not every end user site looks like another, but there are 4 different capabilities that essentially make up a full-fledged MES system. That's quality, production, process, and warehouse management. And we call these our fit for purpose applications because we can actually break these down and leverage them and put them in place individually. You don't have to have a full production center. However, the other 3rd flavor that we do have of MES systems is what we call our industry suites. This is like production center, going to be a full-fledged solution, but it's even more catered to specific industries like pharma suite, auto suite, or CPG suite that you see here, so that you can make sure if there are certain regulations or things that need to be done, the solution is going to be catered specifically to that. All right, so there's our manufacturing execution systems. The next one and the last one I want to talk about on these really high level and connectivity focused systems is our computerized maintenance management system, and it's known as FIX. This is actually a recent acquisition that Rockwell has. They're pretty known in the industry for being a CMMS, a single CMMS focused on maintenance activity and opportunities. I guess one thing to mention here, right, is there's a couple different types of CMMS systems. You might also know the term EAM, Enterprise Asset Management System. It's going to do a pretty similar thing, but all of these are focused on looking at assets across a site or across an organization, and giving you insight into what needs to have scheduled maintenance on it, what is going wrong, what needs maybe reactive maintenance on it, any issues that might have come up in the plant that an operator recognized. And it also does things like actually connect to maintenance technicians so that they can have all of the information with what's going on in front of them, as well as, specific work orders that are assigned to them or specific step-by-step processes on how to, complete a fix or do a piece of scheduled maintenance or whatever that looks like. But there's 4 main buckets of it, right? And I've already kind of mentioned a few of them. Work order management is one, asset management is another, making sure that not only are we performing the actions that need to be done and are identified, we're also taking a look at and making sure that everything is running well, and using that information to analyze whether anything else needs to be scheduled or performed. But in addition to that, Fix also has the ability to integrate in parts and supplies management. so that not only are we sending out those work orders and integrating with our maintenance team, we also have the ability to connect that to purchasing information and parts that we have on site or within our organizations, that we can understand and make sure, hey, if we have to perform this tomorrow, we've got everything we need to do it. If not, let's resort and reorganize our priorities to make sure that we're doing everything efficiently. And that kind of ties into the last bucket here, the reporting and analytics available within this software system that can really just help optimize how we're doing that today. All right, I talked a lot there. Mike, any questions that we want to address live?
Not so far. You're doing an incredible job of explaining everything.
Awesome. I hope so. I know I'm talking pretty quickly here. There's a lot of different technologies, but again, we've talked about the connectivity piece. We've talked about how we can then access information, tie it all together, and interact with it and perform different actions on it. There's 3 flavors here, right? Internet of Things is pretty broad and it can do a lot of different functionalities. MES is focused a bit more on how can we make sure that our lines and our plant floor operations are connected to things like our ERPs and our PLMs. And then CMMS obviously is similar to these systems, but it's really focused on maintenance, connecting to the maintenance team and connecting to assets so that we can make sure everything's running and running well. Now, the next piece I want to go into is scalable analytics. And this is really, again, going to be focused on no longer just accessing information or connecting to it, but how can we optimize the data that we have in order to perform better, to reduce costs, and anything else that might be a big goal of ours lately. And the way that I typically like to talk about scalable analytics is I like to start with this chart. And the reason being is there's actually a few different technologies that fit under this analytics umbrella. And that was designed intentionally, right? Because there's different types of analytics that we see at the top here, and there's different places at which they sit. So we've got a few different options that are designed to fit in different places on this chart to optimize based on whatever use case or concern where you might want to apply an analytical model. This is going to help us figure out which one is the best fit and how can it help us do what we're trying to do today. But before I hop into those and what those technologies are, I'm going to review this chart here pretty quickly. There's essentially 4 types of analytics. The first, descriptive analytics, is focused on really just showing our data, displaying data, telling us what's running, am I running okay, how's the line doing. This is basic, think of an HMI as a simple type of descriptive analytics, because no longer are you having to dig in and understand what's going on, but you've got your data. Maybe it's coming from a controller and being sent to an HMI screen. It's displayed in front of you, and now you have access to that descriptive information. Descriptive analytics doesn't have to be at that HMI level. It can go up into different dashboarding systems, other reporting tools, other BI tools that are going to really show you what's in front of you. But that's really the most basic level, is better access to that data. The second type of analytics is what we call diagnostic analytics. And it's stepping above descriptive analytics in that not only is it showing you what's going on, but it's also showing you why it's happening. So imagine an HMI screen with an alarm flashing. Not only is it telling you, hey, there's an alarm happening here, but it might have a fault associated with it. So it's telling you, hey, this is probably why something's going on. This might be why a line is down. This might be why something's not responding. So those are the first 2. They fit under what we would call basic analytics. I don't really like the term basic because I think there's a lot of complexity that falls into there. But those are the first 2 within this scalable analytics idea that we've got going on. The next 2 are focused on mathematical models and more of that, typical analytics that we might think of whenever we hear that term. This third one here is predictive analytics. So no longer are we just saying this is happening and this is why it's happening, but we're starting to say, based on the historical information that I've seen so far, this is what's going to happen next. And then beyond that, prescriptive is going even further and saying, now I know that this is going to happen next. This is what needs to be done about it. It's prescribing an action based on the mathematical information and the trends that it's seeing and predicting. So those are them in a gist. The only other part of this chart to really worry about, right, is where it sits. And if you remember back to our first slide, there's really 3 sections: at the device level, at the system level, and then at the enterprise level. But to put it simply, when I talk about basic analytics, I'm talking about data visualization, focusing on displaying information. There's 2 technologies that I'll talk about today that fit within this data visualization analytics umbrella, and that's FactoryTalk Analytics for Devices and FactoryTalk Analytics DataView. Now, advanced analytics in this predictive and prescriptive space, this is where I like to reword it as machine learning or artificial intelligence. These are the ones that are focused on actual mathematical models being applied to the data and to the information. And we've got quite a few different technologies that fit here, that fit at different levels, at the controller level, at the edge, in a site or system level, and at the enterprise level as well. So I'll hop into each of these also, but I'm going to go ahead and hop into FactoryTalk Analytics for Devices to get us started. Oh, and I guess before I do that, one other thing to mention, right? I talked about IIoT at the beginning, and if you guys remember, part of what ThingWorx does is it has a dashboarding capability built into it. The nice part about an IIoT system is ThingWorx itself also has the ability to apply analytics. So this is kind of one that stretches across the different types of analytics, but this is more in our IIoT and accessing and interacting with data section that we mentioned earlier. All right, so FactoryTalk Analytics for Devices. You guys saw in the last chart, this one sat at the bottom left side of it. So it's focused on the device level, but this is actually a physical device that we plug in. It's basically just going to scan an Ethernet network, and then it's going to create these action cards for all of the Ethernet devices recognized on that network. And really what it's doing with each of these is it's going to show you different really action cards or things that are required or need to be done based on what's going on with it. Some of the example ones, I don't know if this is too small for y'all to see, but we've got, hey, on this PowerFlex 755, maintenance is required. Over here, we need a check function. You can also see they're marked complete when a technician or an automation engineer has the ability to go in and say, hey, done this, it's ready to go. But really, this is focused on the controls piece. If you've got a controls team that's constantly monitoring those devices on the plant floor, this is going to make their life a bit easier by giving them access quickly and easily to a dashboard that's showing them, hey, this is what's going on with your network switch. This controller needs a firmware update, and so on and so forth. So again, it's really in that descriptive and diagnostic space, but giving you better insight and access to the information in front of you. Now, the second data visualization analytics technology I want to talk about is FactoryTalk Analytics DataView. And DataView is actually focused completely on dashboarding. It uses what we call self-service storyboards. And I guess what's going to separate it from a typical reporting tool that's just giving you stagnant charts and graphs and trends is DataView actually gives you the ability to easily and intuitively drill down into your information. So not only are you getting a PDF report that shows you this, but I can log into DataView. I can view all of this information live. And then if I like, let's say I'm looking at alarms by different machines, and I see that one alarm, the oven here, has a lot going on. I can actually click on this chart and I can filter out the entire dashboard to show me, hey, I want to understand exactly what's going on with this device. At what time was this happening? And basically, it gives me the ability to kind of play detective and dig deeper into the information, identify problems, and more quickly fix them based on what I'm seeing in front of me. There's a lot of power there. It's able to connect to a lot of different data sources as well, whether that's SQL, historians, live data coming from a controller, or any other database that might exist on your site. But a really powerful tool focused on visualization, but giving you a little bit more capability than a typical dashboard and reporting tool. All right, that's all I'm going to talk about for our data visualization piece. The next one I want to hop into is on the machine learning side, and I'm going to start at the bottom here with FactoryTalk Analytics Logix AI. The Logix AI is the first tool that we've got, and it's going to sit at the control level. You can see here, it's actually a module that's going to fit into a control Logix chassis. But the nice part about it being there at the edge is at the device level, it can communicate directly with the controller, and the output of the models, the mathematical models and analytics that it can run are going to go directly back into the controller. And there's typically really two big use cases that we talk about when it comes to Logix AI, or two different functions that are most commonly used. And that's what we call soft sensing and anomaly detection. Soft sensing is going to be able to look at different IO values that are coming in and identify when something is, let's say, a little bit off or not looking good. FactoryTalk Analytics Logix AI can actually continuously monitor and apply mathematical models so that it's going to essentially, place values in there that are calculated versus always relying on that input value. Anomaly detection, on the other hand, is going to be able to identify outliers and correct information so that if you've got, let's say, a continuous process and you're looking at temperature and then all of a sudden you've got a faulty reading, you can essentially remove those so that it's not going to impact your process when needed. But again, you can also do custom analytic models built in on this. It's got a pretty easy UI. The nice piece is, again, it sits next to the controller. You can talk pretty easily to it. This is a really good introduction into the machine learning world, especially if you've got some use cases that are within your controllers and devices, and really looking at the sensing that's happening around you. The next one I'm going to hop into is FactoryTalk Analytics Edge. And I want to first go back to this slide. If you remember it from earlier, I talked a bit about FactoryTalk Edge Gateway, which is a really powerful edge connectivity tool focused on connecting to, contextualizing, and then sending data. What's really powerful is we are actually continuously building additional applications on top of FactoryTalk Edge Gateway, and analytics is one of those things. We've built out a software and a UI that's going to sit on top of Edge Gateway and give you the ability to apply analytic models at that location so that it's a bit quicker in talking to the devices on the plant floor, and it can export analytic results directly to wherever you're sending that information. Again, earlier I mentioned that was MS SQL or Azure IoT Hub, ThingWorx, any other big business systems or databases that you're collecting and performing analysis on up at the top level of your organization. All right, I am going to skip over Pavilion 8 here. I don't have a slide on it today, but Pavilion 8 is our MPC control solution. MPC stands for Model Predictive Control. So this is focused specifically on the process space. And what it's actually giving you is the ability to be in the prescriptive side of things, because it's looking at continuous process data, and it's actually applying analytical models to adjust the different attributes and performance and indicators needed to really keep something at the state that it needs to be in, using that algorithms built into this solution. This is typically a fully baked solution, so this is something that we would come in and work with you guys pretty closely on, because it is closed loop per se, but another really powerful analytic tool within our Scalable Analytics suite here. And the last one I'm going to hop into is FactoryTalk Analytics DataView, or excuse me, DataFlow ML. This is probably our most capable and robust solution that you guys can use as a tool to create analytical models. The original FactoryTalk Analytics DataFlow ML is built for a data scientist persona, because it gives them a lot of flexibility in the language they want to use. the ability to pull in different analytical models or use out-of-the-box options that we've got today. But really, you can see here, it's basically the option to give you a completely custom-built machine learning applied to either the OT side or the IT side if you're looking at different software in databases, maybe in the cloud or at the enterprise level and not just at the device level anymore. We have designed it to be simple. So for a data scientist or for somebody that's educated in this space, it's designed to give them flexibility and freedom as well as capability in connecting to and applying this information. But if that sounds a bit, what's the word, intimidating for you guys, let's say you're not a data scientist, let's say we were talking to a few process or controls engineers today. The nice piece about this is it's the most flexible and there's the most capability of our machine learning platforms. But the other piece is we've actually got what we call Augmented Modeler, which is an application built on top of DataFlow ML. So you get all of the functionality within DataFlow ML, but essentially what it is it's an application that's designed to be a lot simpler to use for those individuals that don't have that data science background under their belt. But again, giving you a bit more visual options to apply analytics to connect to the specific attributes that you want to look at, as well as the results of any analytical models that you're producing here. And it does have three basic applications that are most commonly used, and that's anomaly detection, predictive maintenance, and predictive KPIs that can all be leveraged within this system. All right, so that is our analytics portfolio. Again, I know I talked a lot and I went through that quite quickly. The last thing, and I'm not going to talk too much about it, again, ThingWorx is our IoT solution and it does have some analytic capabilities built within it. So another thing to keep in mind if you're looking at, hey, how can I focus on this space where I still need to get access to and interact with my data, but hey, I do want to apply some analytics down the line, and this is a goal of ours in the future. I'm going to pause here before I hop into the last slide on AR. Mike, any questions?
Not at this time. I'm sure people have plenty of questions, but they just don't want to ask them at this time. So we'll come back after the end and make sure that everyone reaches out to their local specialists if they do have any questions, and we'll get them answered for them.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's a good point. All the specialists on the call today, they've seen a lot of this information, and I'm sure they'd all be happy to help you guys if you want to either understand more about any of the technologies I'm talking about, or spend a bit more time really going through how this is laid out. And they know that they can pull me in at any time, so happy to meet any of you guys as needed. But all right, I think we've got one overview slide. I think we can share this at the end. I'll let Mike correct me if I'm wrong there, but this again is just going to kind of compare and contrast those machine learning and analytics tools that I went through earlier, to give you guys the opportunity to see, hey, which one's going to make the most sense for me if I'm looking into how to apply analytical models on what I'm doing today. But the last thing I did want to talk about was that AR section. And again, augmented reality is designed to be focused on the people in your organization. So most of these use cases that you can read here under the title of each of these technologies is all about learning, whether that be via collaboration with individuals or via work instructions or better training. That's really what AR is focused on. And there's 4 technologies that we support today that can do that. But to keep it simple, if you guys are interested in this, the term you want to know here is Vuforia. And again, that's something that your specialists on the call with me here today or myself would be happy to talk to you with more. But briefly, the first of these Vuforia tools is what we call Vuforia Chalk. This is a mobile application that gives you the ability to connect live to a remote expert that might not be in the same place as you. If you can see this picture, essentially what's happening is within Chalk, you have the ability to draw annotations on your screen. But the nice part is, as you move your camera around on that mobile device, those annotations are going to stay exactly where you wrote them. And that's powerful because if you're looking at something really complex, if you move your camera slightly, you're not going to have a floating circle or a question mark sitting on top of something new, creating a lot of confusion. But this is really just going to help you identify problems quicker and connect to those resources quicker as well. For any equipment manufacturers on the line, this is also something that we're seeing a lot of OEMs start talking to their customers about. Instead of any tech support contracts, or in addition to any tech support contracts you might have in place, this can really supplement that and help give you a more visual platform to connect to folks on the ground, and help them get back up and running quicker. Now, these two middle technologies kind of go hand in hand, but these are both focused on step-by-step work instructions. So think of any processes that you might do today, any machines that you've got today that have really, really long, in-depth PDF or paper instruction manuals. And then for you equipment manufacturers, think about the time required to create those. Both of these technologies are focused on assisting in that space. One, as you've got a new workforce, if turnover is something that you've got to deal with often, it's a lot quicker to train somebody up whenever you've got an intuitive video, an augmented video process in front of them. And that's what both of these can do. Expert capture, if you can see here, is focused on putting a caption and a recorded video in front of an individual, whether they're doing training, whether they're doing a process that they're just not very familiar with. The value of it is that instead of having to call somebody up or to go through a lot of document and spend a lot of time trying to learn something, the time to get going is going to be significantly reduced with something intuitive like this. The nice part about this too is it's device agnostic, meaning that you can use it on a mobile device or a tablet, but you can also use it on wearable devices. And we're seeing that grow in a lot of our manufacturing customers today with the use of Microsoft HoloLenses, like this gentleman is wearing here, as well as RealWear head-mounted tablets as well. But Instruct is essentially doing the same thing, right? It's giving us more intuitive step-by-step work instructions. But what Vuforia Instruct does is it actually overlays 3D models onto those step-by-step instructions, so that not only are you given the process that needs to be done, but it's actually going to point out on the device in front of your camera exactly which part and where on that device or machine you need to be looking at to perform that specific step. It's also got some nice features like the ability to confirm a step was done, or the ability to pass or fail a step if you're looking at using this for inspections, whether that be quality inspections or other, or if you need to keep track of who's accessing these step-by-step work instructions. This is giving you the ability to have that information at your disposal by tracking who's going through it, when they're going through it, and how successfully it was completed. So those are really our three big purpose-built AR applications. The last one, Vuforia Studio, I won't go into too much depth with it because it, like some of the other technologies I talked about today, is actually a platform. So within Vuforia Studio, you can create and design your own augmented reality application. You can leverage 3D models. You could connect to live data so that if somebody puts on a headset or scans a QR code on a phone, they can actually see what's running in front of them, maybe some key KPIs, any alarms that need to be looked at. Completely flexible, completely customizable, and another really powerful tool. With that, that's all I wanted to talk to on the augmented reality portfolio today. That's really all I had.
Well, Bree, we do have one question, and it was internally driven. If one wants to test drive some of these Innovation Suite software tools, what are the options to have some access to it? And I'm going to help you with some of this. I'll let you know that we do have labs, on-course labs that cover some of these topics. So any of the Rockwell or the Reynolds or Rockwell specialists can set those labs up for you. What I would say is reach out to them and let us know what you want to play around with, and we'll get it set up for you. But do you have any more input into that, Bree?
No, I think that's the big one. I think the answer to that question is going to depend on which technology you guys are interested in either playing around with or seeing. But in addition to those labs, I think any of the specialists or myself on the phone today can also do live demos with you guys. If it's something like AR we were just talking about, I've actually got some of those wearable devices that we can try out and play around with the tools in person. But the answer again is going to be flexible and really dependent on what you're interested in learning more about.
All right. Thank you very much.
No problem.
I guess with that, Bree, you're done, correct?
Yep, that's all I had today.
All right. Well, you did a great job of breaking down what I think is sometimes a pretty complicated topic when it comes to all the different softwares that are in some of these marketing groups. So I do appreciate you spending some time with us. With that, we will have this users group posted to the website probably within a day or two, so you can go back and revisit it. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, again, reach out to any of your Reynolds specialists, and we will work with you on any questions you might have. With that, we look forward to seeing you next week at the Spectrum Controls Tech Talk.